Have you ever noticed how, in the exact moment everything matters most, you suddenly lose control? Your hands feel different. Your thoughts become loud and messy. Your heart starts racing like something is chasing you. And in that moment, you don't act like the person you believe you are. You hesitate when you should move. You speak when you should stay silent. You panic when you should be calm. And later, when everything is over, clarity comes back. You see exactly what you should have done. You replay it in your mind again and again, asking yourself one painful question: why couldn't I stay in control? This is where most people get it wrong. They think something is broken inside them. They think they lack confidence, strength, or discipline, but the truth is deeper than that. Under pressure, your brain is not designed to help you perform. It is designed to protect you. In that critical moment, your mind shifts into survival mode. It does not care about your goals, your plans, or your potential. It only cares about keeping you safe. So it floods your body with urgency. It speeds everything up. It shuts down clear thinking. And without realizing it, you begin to react instead of respond. This is why you lose control. But here is the truth that changes everything. Pressure does not create weakness. It exposes what has never been trained. When life is easy, anyone can appear confident. Anyone can feel in control when nothing is at stake. But pressure is the real test. It strips away comfort. It reveals your habits. It shows you what your mind has practiced over time. If your mind is trained to escape discomfort, you will avoid action. If your mind is trained to react emotionally, you will lose clarity. If your mind is trained to seek ease, you will break under stress. And this is exactly why most people fail in the moments that matter most. But there is another way to live. Look at Miyamoto Musashi. A man who stood in life and death situations again and again. A man who faced pressure most people could never imagine, and yet he remained calm, focused, in control. Not because he was born different, not because he felt no fear, but because he understood something most people ignore. Control is not built in the moment of pressure. It is built long before it ever arrives. This is your advantage. This is your opportunity, because it means you can change. Right now, you might feel like pressure owns you. Like stress decides your actions. Like your emotions are stronger than your intentions. But that is not permanent. That is trained behavior, and anything trained can be retrained. Imagine becoming the person who stays calm when everything is falling apart. Imagine being the one who thinks clearly while others panic. Imagine having control over your mind when it matters most. That is power, real power. And if you stay with this, if you truly understand what is coming next, you will begin to see pressure differently. Not as something that breaks you, but as something that reveals your potential to rise. And once you begin to see that truth, something shifts inside you. You stop blaming pressure and you start questioning your patterns. Because the real problem is not the moment itself. It is how your mind has been conditioned to respond to it. Your brain has been trained, day after day, through small decisions you barely notice. Every time you avoided discomfort, you taught your mind to escape. Every time you reacted emotionally, you strengthened that reaction. Every time you chose distraction over focus, you weakened your ability to stay present. These moments felt small, insignificant. But they were not. They were repetitions, and repetition builds identity. So when pressure arrives, your mind does not create a new response. It follows the path it already knows. It moves fast without asking permission. It reacts based on what you have practiced, not what you wish you would do. This is why you feel out of control, because in that moment you are not choosing. You are executing a pattern, and here is where the deeper truth becomes uncomfortable. Most people never train this part of themselves. They train skills, they train knowledge, they train performance. But they never train their response to pressure. So when it matters most, everything collapses. Your thoughts race faster than you can manage. Your emotions rise higher than you can handle. Your focus disappears when you need it the most. And in seconds, the moment is gone, but your brain is not fixed. It is adaptable. It changes based on what you repeatedly do. This means you can rewire how you respond to pressure, not by wishing for confidence, not by waiting for the right mood, but by deliberately training your reactions in the moments that feel uncomfortable. You start small. You notice when your mind begins to rush. You catch the moment your breathing changes. You become aware of the instant your emotions begin to rise. That awareness is powerful because it creates space. And in that space, you are no longer trapped inside the reaction. You are observing it. That is the first step toward control. From there, you begin to guide your response. You slow your breathing, even when your body wants to speed up. You focus your attention, even when your mind wants to scatter. You hold your position, even when everything inside you wants to escape. It feels unnatural at first, almost forced. Because you are going against years of conditioning. But every time you do this, you are teaching your brain something new. You are showing it that pressure is not danger. You are proving that you can stay present inside discomfort. You are building a new pattern, one decision at a time. This is the path that Miyamoto Musashi mastered. He did not wait for chaos to teach him control. He trained his mind before the moment ever arrived. So when pressure came, he did not panic. He responded with precision. And you can build that same control. Because the moment you stop reacting automatically, you take your power back. The moment you create even a second of pause, you break the cycle. And inside that pause is where clarity lives. That is where your true strength begins to rise. And when that clarity begins to appear, even for a brief moment, you start to realize something powerful. Control was never about eliminating pressure. It was about mastering yourself within it, because pressure is not going anywhere. The expectations, the deadlines, the critical moments, they will always exist. Life will continue to test you. The only question is whether you will continue to react the same way or rise into a different version of yourself. This is where discipline takes over, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet, consistent kind that shapes your mind when no one is watching. You begin to treat every small trigger as training. Every moment of irritation becomes a test of patience. Every moment of stress becomes a chance to slow down instead of speed up. Every moment of discomfort becomes an opportunity to stay instead of escape. This is how control is built. Not in one big moment, but in hundreds of small ones. Your mind starts to change, slowly but surely. The same situations that once controlled you begin to lose their power. The same pressure that once overwhelmed you starts to feel familiar, and familiarity changes everything. Because what is familiar no longer feels dangerous. Your brain stops sounding the alarm. Your thoughts stop racing as fast. Your body begins to settle even when the situation is intense. You are not removing pressure, you are becoming stronger than it. This is the discipline that separates those who break from those who remain steady. Think about what happens when most people feel pressure. They rush. They try to escape the feeling as quickly as possible. They make fast decisions just to relieve the discomfort. But in doing so, they lose precision, they lose clarity, they lose control. But when you train yourself differently, you move in the opposite direction. You slow down when others speed up. You focus when others scatter. You stay grounded when others become unstable. That is power, not loud, not visible, but undeniable. This is what Miyamoto Musashi understood at the deepest level. Control is not about fighting your emotions. It is about not becoming a slave to them. You still feel everything. The pressure, the tension, the urgency, but those feelings no longer dictate your actions. Instead, you create space between what you feel and what you do. And inside that space, you choose. You choose patience over panic. You choose clarity over chaos. You choose precision over reaction. At first, that space is small, almost invisible. But with repetition, it grows. And as it grows, so does your control. You begin to trust yourself in ways you never did before. Not because life is easier, but because you are no longer fragile inside it. You become steady. Your mind becomes sharper. Your emotions become quieter. Your presence becomes stronger. And people notice it, not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because calmness in pressure is rare. It stands out. It carries weight. But more importantly, you feel it within yourself. A sense of control that cannot be shaken easily. A quiet confidence that does not depend on external conditions. A strength that remains even when everything else feels uncertain. And once you experience that, even for a moment, you realize there is no going back. Because now you know what you are capable of becoming. And once you taste that level of control, even briefly, your standards begin to rise. You stop accepting the version of yourself that collapses under pressure. You start demanding more from your mind, more from your focus, more from your discipline. Because now you understand something most people never realize. Control is not a talent. It is an identity that is built through repetition. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you reinforce that identity. Every time you stay present instead of escaping, you strengthen it. Every time you hold your ground when your emotions try to pull you away, you prove to yourself that you are no longer the same person. This is where transformation becomes real, not in motivation. Not in words, but in consistent, deliberate action. You begin to lean into pressure instead of avoiding it. You stop seeing difficult moments as something to survive, and you start seeing them as something to use. Because each moment carries a hidden opportunity to sharpen your mind. You no longer run from discomfort, you walk into it with awareness, and this changes how you move through life. When others hesitate, you step forward. When others become overwhelmed, you simplify. When others lose direction, you stay focused on what matters. This is not because you are fearless. It is because you are trained. There is a difference. Fear will still exist. Doubt will still appear. Pressure will still rise, but none of it will have the same control over you as before. Because now you have built something stronger than emotion. You have built stability. This is the level where most people break away from the average. Because the world is full of people who react. Very few people respond with clarity, and that difference shows up in everything. In your decisions, in your performance, in the way you handle challenges, in the way people perceive you, you become someone others rely on. Not because you speak the loudest, but because you remain steady when everything else is unstable. That kind of presence cannot be faked. It is earned. Miyamoto Musashi reached this level because he refused to let pressure dictate his actions. He trained until his mind no longer wavered in critical moments. Until his response became precise, controlled, and intentional. And this is where your journey leads if you continue. You start to notice that high-pressure situations no longer feel overwhelming. They feel sharp, clear, focused. Your mind does not scatter, it locks in. Your actions do not rush. They become deliberate. You stop wasting energy on panic and you start directing it into execution. This is what makes you unshakable. Not the absence of pressure, but the presence of control within it. And when you reach this point, something even deeper happens. You begin to trust yourself completely. No matter the situation, no matter the intensity, no matter the stakes. Because you know that when the moment comes, you will not fall apart. You will stand still, you will think clearly, you will act with precision, and that kind of self-trust is rare. It is built through discipline, strengthened through pressure, and proven in the moments where everything is on the line. Once you have it, it changes how you see yourself forever. And when you begin to trust yourself at that level, everything around you starts to change. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you are no longer controlled by it. The same pressure that once made you hesitate now sharpens your focus. The same intensity that once overwhelmed you now fuels your precision. This is where true power reveals itself. Not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and unbreakable. Because now every moment of pressure becomes a choice. A choice between reacting or responding, between panic or control. Between the old version of you and the one you are becoming. Most people never realize how much power exists in that choice. They move too fast. They let the moment decide for them. And in doing so, they give away control without even noticing. But you are no longer that person. Now when pressure rises, you feel it, but you do not rush. You recognize the signal. You become aware of the shift inside your body. And instead of fighting it or escaping it, you face it with intention. You slow your breathing, you center your focus, you hold your position. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. Your mind clears, your vision sharpens, your actions become deliberate. This is the space where control lives. This is the space most people never reach because they never train themselves to stay inside it. But you have, through repetition, through discipline, through choosing discomfort over ease again and again. And now, the result is undeniable. You no longer break in critical moments. You do not lose yourself when the stakes are high. You do not allow emotion to dictate your decisions. Instead, you remain grounded. This is what made Miyamoto Musashi different. Not just his skill, but his ability to remain completely present when everything around him demanded reaction. He understood that the battle is not just external, it is internal. And the one who controls the internal wins. That same principle applies to your life. Every challenge you face is not just testing your ability, it is testing your control, your patience, your focus, your discipline. And every time you choose to remain steady, you reinforce that identity. You become someone who does not fold under pressure, someone who does not get overwhelmed by chaos. Someone who can be trusted, relied on, respected, not because of what you say, but because of how you show up when it matters most. This is rare, and that is why it separates you. Because in a world driven by reaction, control is power, and the more you build it, the more unstoppable you become. Not in a loud, aggressive way, but in a calm, undeniable presence that cannot be shaken. You start to move differently, think differently, decide differently, and over time this becomes who you are. No longer someone who loses control under pressure, but someone who owns it completely. And when you fully step into that identity, there is no confusion left about who you are when pressure arrives. You are not guessing anymore. You are not hoping you will stay calm. You know you will because you built it, moment by moment, choice by choice. This is where everything becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You stop overcomplicating your reactions. You stop searching for perfect conditions. You stop waiting to feel ready, because you understand that readiness is not a feeling. It is a result of preparation, and you have prepared. Now every time pressure shows up, you see it clearly, not as a threat, but as a test you are ready to pass. A signal that it is time to apply everything you have trained. Your breathing stays steady, your mind stays sharp, your actions stay controlled, even when everything around you is unstable. This is where your true edge comes from, because while others are overwhelmed by the moment, you are operating within it. While others are reacting emotionally, you are executing with intention. While others are losing time to panic, you are using that same time to move forward. And that difference compounds. It shows up in your results, in your growth, in your ability to handle challenges that once felt impossible. You begin to realize that pressure was never the barrier. It was the gateway to a stronger mind, a sharper focus, a more powerful version of yourself. And now you do not avoid it, you seek it, not recklessly but deliberately. Because you know that every time you step into pressure and maintain control, you are reinforcing the person you have become. This is how mastery is built. Not through comfort, but through controlled exposure to difficulty. This is exactly how Miyamoto Musashi shaped his mind. He did not wait for the perfect moment. He created readiness through discipline. He understood that the mind, when trained correctly, becomes unshakable. And now, so does yours, but it all comes back to one thing: choice. Every single moment, you are making a decision, to react or to respond, to fall back into old patterns or to step forward into control, to let pressure define you or to use it as a tool to sharpen yourself. Most people ignore these choices because they feel small, but you know better now. These small decisions are everything. They build your habits, they shape your identity, they determine how you show up when it matters most. So when the next moment of pressure comes, and it will, you do not hesitate, you pause. You breathe, you focus, and then you act with clarity. That is your power, not in avoiding pressure, but in mastering yourself within it. And when you live this way, consistently, relentlessly, something incredible happens. You stop fearing the moment. You start owning it. You become the person who does not break. The one who stays steady. The one who leads, decides, and executes when others cannot. And that is the difference between a life controlled by pressure and a life controlled by you.